So how then do we make decisions in this family model of leadership? Just as the small church approaches leadership different, so also the process by which decisions are made reflect a family orientation rather than a business or managerial process. And the first thing we need to recognize is that leading in the family model involves participatory leadership. Although in the family it has a designated leader, but decisions that affect the whole family, it is expected that everyone will have input. For example, how would the wife respond if the husband came home one day and said, "Dear, I've quit my job today and I've taken a job all the way across the country"? I doubt if she would be real receptive to his decision, even though he is, and she recognizes him as the leader. Because there's a recognition that in the family, in the husband-wife relationship, that decisions that affect the whole family, there's a time of mutual interaction and everyone has a chance to participate in the decision-making process. And it's true in the church as well. Participation means that everyone who's interested in the issue has the opportunity to express their perspective before the decision is made. A family leader gains acceptance rather than just a majority vote. Now imagine for a moment again. The husband comes home. He announces to his family that he has a job opportunity across country that's going to require a significant move for the family. And so he takes a vote. How many want me to take the job? The wife says yes. The 6-year-old son says yes, but the teenage daughter objects and votes no. Now, if all we're going to do is operate by a majority vote, what's going to happen with the daughter? Chances are she's going to rebel and resent the move. Far better would it be for her to get to a point where she accepts the move. Now, she may not want the move, she may not agree to the move, but she's willing to accept the transition. See, that's, in terms of the small church, why it's important to move towards acceptance as much as possible rather than just a majority vote. Because we can take a majority vote, but if those individuals have not accepted the decision, then what will happen is that they will resist the decision long after it has been made. And they will not rally around the decision and support the decision. And so far better is we want to strive, and a family leader recognizes that a majority vote may get the issue passed, but it's acceptance that's crucial if the congregation is to accept and fully embrace the decision. Thirdly, family leaders work with the tribal chiefs. Now, in the small church, oftentimes there are certain individuals who, because of their past history in the church and even sometimes family relationships within the church, have a predominant role within the congregation. They are the ones everyone looks to provide guidance and leadership. So the pastor, when he comes into a church, rather than feel threatened by that person, he learns to work with that person. He does not try to challenge their authority, but rather he works within the context of that relationship. He recognizes their unofficial, official position within the church, and he works with them. Fourthly, family leaders recognize the value of informal communication. Now, certainly within any size church, there is importance and a value to formal lines of communication. Communicating through the bulletin, communicating through a newsletter, communicating through announcements in the church. But just as a family recognizes that oftentimes the best communication in the family does not happen through a formal context, but oftentimes over a dinner table. When the family is gathered around a meal together and they're interacting about their day, that sometimes some of the best communication happens in these informal settings. And so it is in the small church. That oftentimes the most effective communication occurs not through the formal process, but over a cup of coffee, personal interaction. And so the leader recognizes that he needs to spend time with people and share his plans and goals long before he attempts to implement them. That he talks and communicates on an informal basis. And then lastly, family leaders keep the organization subservient to relationships. A father's decision to take a new job is not determined by the economic gains, but rather by the effect it has upon a family. And it's true in the small church. The ultimate question is not what is best for the organizational church, but what is best for the individual relationships within the church. Now, again, we must keep this in balance, that there are times we have to make decisions that do adversely affect relationships. But before we reach that point, we do everything we can to avoid the damage and deal with so that the relationship is not damaged. We do that through communication. We do that through the process of participation. But we always make sure that we've looked at the implications that any decision has upon the relationships that people have and how it will affect individuals. So replacing the organ may be the right thing to do, but we think through how will it affect the person who has been the organist for many, many years. See, if we're to be effective in the small church, we can't just strive to be an administrator. We need to understand the small church. And we need to understand how each church functions. So that every time we come into a new church, we take the time to learn how do they view leadership? How do they view authority? What authority do they give the pastor? And we learn to develop a ministry that becomes sensitive to that. It doesn't mean that we compromise our biblical integrity. There are times we must stand firm because of our biblical truth. But we also recognize that we need to be culturally sensitive, even in our approach to leadership. That in the small church, it operates like a family, and so the leadership is more as a family leader than a corporate leader.